people should know what their gods are, because if there is something sitting at the top and they're not aware of it, perhaps that something could be something that actually ends up directing the conscience down into the valley without an escape back up.
A religion that has the ability to incorporate the chaos appropriately, as opposed to also falling into an entirely totalitarian state. That is the hallmark of a very good religion.
And those, when you tear down those wrong idols, those wrong things that you're asking for, they can't stand up for themselves. They don't have any ground that they stand on. And so you switch over into asking for something good, for the good, the true, the beautiful. That will end up revealing itself to you.
Creative illness as such is the pull towards the good. And my contention would be that it can be, but there are also cases where a person is creatively ill in that kind of way, where they're disjointed in that classic sense from society, but they are not pointing towards the good, and the illness is coming about as a result of misaligned aim towards an idol.
Insofar as you might be wanting to be aligned with the good and keeping on calling on that, you do end up reaping good ultimately in the end.
All right, welcome, wonderful people from all over the world, from different distant places, wonderful knights and contestants. Today we welcome Christopher Graham and Joshua Klepel to battle against each other and against the dragon in an epic quest of ideas. I welcome you folks to Game 8, Personality and its Transformations, Part 2. And so here we go, gonna spin the roulette. And... oh, try again. Okay, we'll try one more time. And we got... try again, of course. Just 1 second. Let's see if this works sometime. Okay, it's not working. What are the odds? I guess 50-50, but just... come on, seriously? How many times?
You gotta split it down the middle.
Yeah. Come on, seriously? There's no way, man. This is rigged, man. What's going on?
It's like an arcade slot machine. You're not gonna get the 1,000 tickets. No way.
It doesn't want us to play, man. Come on. Okay, here we go.
Okay.
Joshua, it's your turn.
I thought this was going to be the only game where either Chris or I won, but it was the machine that actually won the round.
Yeah.
The first time.
Yeah, the machine won like a dozen times before one of us were able to win the round. So okay, perfect, good sir. Tell me, Joshua, which topic would you like to choose? You got Zone of Development, Shamanic Training, Noah's Pattern, William James, Asclepius, and Dialogue.
Shamanic Training.
Shamanic Training it is, good sir. Here we go. And the question is, what are the two key pieces of training that shamans would always have, according to Eliade and Peterson? A. Intense psychedelic training and dream interpretations. B. Ecstatic experiences and traditional teachings. C. Imposed isolation and psychedelic use. Or D. Training on sacrificial rituals and fasting.
I don't think it's going to be C or D, because I don't think psychedelic use is a necessary prerequisite, or fasting. So then it's ecstatic experiences and traditional teaching. Traditional teaching doesn't seem like it's going to be something. Intense psychedelic training. I feel like B is the best, because the shaman comes from a certain place in society, and so they have that training. They have to have some place where they're coming from, and then they have these ecstatic experiences. Ecstatic, though, means like... no. Let me think about this for a second.
Absolutely, sir. Take your time.
Yeah, I'll go with B. B is my best shot.
Absolutely, sir. So we're looking in B.
Mhm.
And the answer is correct. Good job, good sir. Yes, absolutely. So this is apparently what Peterson points out that Eliade mentions in some of his investigations into into shamanism, is that they would receive both very static training, meaning like different rituals and different practices to kind of like alter the states of consciousness, but also they would also receive all of the tradition from their tribe, so that they would have to be trained in a way to kind of like constrain all of those ecstatic experiences and actually find meaning on them and guide like their people forward. Basically, all of their wisdom of their ancestors and of the past also would come along with all of that. Absolutely, good sir. Good job, Josh. And so with that, we'll head over to Chris. Tell me, sir, which one would you like to pick? Zone of development, Noah's pattern, William James, Asclepius, or dialogue?
I'm gonna go with dialogue.
Absolutely, dialogue it is. And the question is, which two authors does Peterson use to emphasize that proper dialogue techniques are at the core of problem solving in relationships? A. Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. B. Carl Rogers and Sigmund Freud. C. Carl Rogers and William James. Or D. Carl Jung and William James.
Oh my gosh, this is a hard one. Proper dialogue techniques. Oh, for a second I wanted to rule out Carl Jung and Freud, but I actually wonder if that's actually the answer. Yeah, I'm gonna go with A. I want to say Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud.
Absolutely, sir. Are we looking in A? Absolutely
Yeah.
sure. Okay, here we go. And the answer is... Oh no, Chris. I'm sorry. I'm not gonna tell you guys the answer just yet, just in case Joshua decides to steal it, or you can have a second chance at it with increased chance as well, now that you have discarded one, Chris. But for now, we're heading back to Josh. Tell me, Josh, which other which topic would you like to pick?
I'll do Asclepius.
Asclepius. Absolutely. And just one second, please. And the question is, what does the symbol of Asclepius show in mythology according to Peterson? A. The idea of killing the snake with a rod. B. The idea of the pharmacon. A little of the poison is the thing that cures you. C. The idea of knowledge being ascertained in an ascending spiral way. Or D. The idea of putting reason and intellect at the top of the hierarchy.
B.
B. The idea of the pharmacon, a little of the poison is the thing that cures you?
Yep.
Absolutely, sir. We're looking in B, and the answer is... correct! Good job, good sir. The symbol of Asclepius is actually basically the idea of the pharmacon, which is exactly that is even used today in the as a symbol also of medicine, and also the idea behind the vaccines and basically any other type of medical intervention that requires your organism to fight a little bit of the cure to create to enhance the immune system. Absolutely, sir. And so with that, we're heading back to Chris. Tell me, Chris, which topic would you like to go for?
I'll go for zone of development.
Zone of development it is, of course. And the question is, what are the characteristics of the zone of optimal development? A. It is encountered in comfort, where you have mastered all the things you have at your disposal. B. It is encountered in constant embracing of challenges. C. It is encountered in industriousness and safety. Or D. It is encountered at the edge of comfort where knowledge meets novelty.
I'm going with D. Locking in D for sure.
Absolutely, looking in D, and the answer is... Correct. Good job, good sir. Absolutely. That is a correct answer. The zone of optimal development is exactly where your abilities match the environment, but the environment kind of like exceeds it a little bit and pushes you towards actually evolving from there. And so with that, we're heading over to Josh. Josh, tell me, you got Noah's pattern,
I'll go with Noah's
William
pattern.
James. Noah's pattern, it is. And so, what does the flood's symbolical pattern show? What does the flood's symbolical pattern show according to Jordan Peterson? A. The universal pattern of chaos and reconstitution. B. The universal pattern of authority. C. The universal pattern of the world of the end of the world. Or D. The universal pattern of God's guidance.
I really think it's got to be A.
Are we looking in A?
Yep.
Absolutely, sir. We're looking in A, the universal pattern of chaos and reconstitution. And the answer is correct. Good, sir. Good job. Absolutely. It's this pattern of dissolution into chaos and then reconstitution of order right after that. Absolutely, sir. Good job. And so with that, we're heading over to Chris. Tell us, Chris, would you go for William James or dialogue?
We'll go for William James.
Absolutely, sir. William James it is. And the question is, why does Jordan Peterson bring up William James when talking about going beyond comfort zones? A. He brings up William James's theory of functionalism, which was one of the ways in which experimental psychology was established. B. He brings up the varieties of religious experiences, which tries to give an account from a pragmatic point of view of the functionality of religion. C. He brings up a poem William James wrote in which he tries to conceptualize through poetic prose that which has not yet been conceptualized, the idea of trying to study what is infinite. Or D. He brings up the use of nitrous oxide as a way to induce an altered state of consciousness. This is a little bit of a tricky one for sure.
I think I'm going to go with C. I'm going to lock in C.
We're looking in C, good sir, absolutely. And the answer is correct. Good job, good sir. Yes, absolutely. He uses that as an idea of the psychologist William James trying to conceptualize this idea of the infinite, trying to try to get a grip on this idea of the oneness and the many, of the otherness, and like all of these different states of consciousness, and trying to put into words that which cannot really be said, and so it's very powerful because he's trying to speak about these places where humanity has not yet gone, but they're clearly there for us to conquer eventually as we continue to move forward. And with that, we head over to Josh with dialogue. And so the question is, as it was before, which two authors does Peterson use to emphasize that the proper dialogue techniques are at the core of problem solving in relationships? A. Carl Jung and Sigmund Freud. B. Carl Rogers and Sigmund Freud. C. Carl Rogers and William James. Or D. Carl Jung and William James.
I feel like I had a memory trick because I forget. I know Freud and Jung, but I feel like Rogers, I had a memory note that I placed that Rogers was related to dialogue, because Rogers, like what you say on a call where you like say something and you go Roger over. So I feel like Rogers is about dialogue. Somehow I don't remember him in the lecture, or I don't remember much what he was about. And so Jung's about archetypes. So William James, this is what I was trying to figure out was what was William James about, because apparently I did not remember the people very well from this lecture. But from the last question, I feel like William James is not going to be the answer. And Freud did emphasize sort of this back and forth where the person was sitting on a lying on the bed and talking with a therapist back and forth. So I'm gonna guess Carl Rogers and Freud. B.
Absolutely, sir. We're looking in B, and the answer is correct, good sir. Yes, absolutely. Carl Rogers from the Humanist Tradition emphasizes a lot this idea of dialogue as the core for relationship and personal transformation, but also Sigmund Freud invented the talking cure, which was this talking about whatever it is that comes up to mind with his patients and himself, and through that, kind of like watching the thread of ideas develop. And so, absolutely good, sir. Very, very, very good job, both of you. But with that, it's time for some sparring. And so here comes the dragon, folks. And here are the three topics. Because George is on the lead, Chris, you get to pick first. Tell me, which one would you like to choose? Tohu Wabohu, creative illness, or idols?
Ooh. Creative illness.
Creative illness it is, good sir. And so the statement is, creative illness theory basically describes the process by which God molds a person into the best version they can be, theosis, through the use of conscience. And its process is described even further by St. John of the Cross in his poem The Dark Night of the Soul. Would you like to argue for or against this statement? There's a typo there too, by the way. I'm sorry. This is supposed to be night, not night, but night.
I'm sure someone wrote a book with that title just to be funny. I think I'm going to argue for.
You're going to argue for? Absolutely, sir. Let me just call in the dragon real quick. 1 second.
I would love to see the behind the scenes of him just like switching around, throwing on the dragon mask quickly, getting in character.
Right. It's got to get one of those like Chinese masks that swaps so fast.
All right. Here we go. Sir, tell me what you got. How are you going to defend this?
Okay. I'm like having to read it over some more here.
Absolutely. Take your time.
Well, I haven't read Dark Night of the Soul, but okay, so like I'm trying to like piece together like what.
So the Dark Night of the Soul, it's difficult for me to explain the whole of it, but the gist of it is kind of like there's this progression in which the soul is being purged, or it's actually feeling this sense of it's out in the night, and it's sometimes confused, sometimes it's hurting, sometimes it's having a lot of this difficult progression. But then through this, St. John of the Cross tells us that it's part of God's love, or basically creative molding or creative love that kind of like pushes the soul towards like this process of theosis or sanctification.
So like when it's saying creative illness theory, is the creative part is that in relation to God being creator? I think that's because that's what it makes me think of with it being titled something like creative illness. It's like, okay, is it creative as in like someone who is creative, or like is the illness itself somehow having a share in this, in like being creative, or is it creative as in, and just from this it does seem like it's in relation to God being the creator, and is that molder? Is that the correct way to interpret this?
Yeah, perhaps I should have been a little bit more, I guess, explicit as well with what creative illness theory is as well. It comes from Henry Ellenberger. He coined this term, creative illness, and he basically explained how the different thinkers or different, also shamans and or religious thinkers or and people that would have religious experience will have this same phenomena happen to them, where they would have this type of dissolution of consciousness and have this almost is descent into, it could be sometimes developed as manic expressions, or sometimes very deep suffering and pain or depression, anxiety, different types of ways in which people will kind of like fail psychologically. But then this would always come before there would be like a breakthrough in some type of advancement in a new idea or a new concept or a new understanding of the world. So it can be related to, say, maybe like the development of different psychological theories or philosophical theories and things like that. But it can also be just in terms of like personal development as well. He in some of his books, I forget exactly the title of it, but he to be able to explain this concept, he showed how examples of, for example, when Freud, just before Freud and before Jung would come up with the biggest breakthroughs in their careers, they had this sort of fall into illness, would have either maybe some the descent of some type of mental disorder that they were able to contain or to overcome, and then from that they were able to reconstitute an idea and actually make a breakthrough, or simply kind of like actual physical illness that it was like a manifestation of also partly their mental state of mental state at the time. So it's a psychological theory put out by Ellenberg.
I like seeing this side of the dragon. He has this like super scary face with teeth, and it's just sitting there casually explaining philosophical concepts in like a helpful way, not combative.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jared.
Okay.
I try to be helpful for sure. And
Okay, so I guess what I feel compelled to kind of like defend in terms of this statement is I suppose it kind of it runs with the assumption God is the one who is involved in this process of a person and molding a person into the best version that they can be. And so it's like, okay, well, is it God who does this, or is it not God who does this? And so if I'm going to argue in favor that, yeah, it is God that is molding the person, you can conceptualize, and doing it through conscience. So doing it through conscience, that is, to me, what that says is our conscience is what helps point out to us moments in which we make mistakes, and it is it's Jiminy Cricket. He's the conscience who's pointing out like, this is what we need to do right, this is what is doing that is wrong. And so in that sense, yes, creative illness theory would be this thing of everyone has a conscience, and it is necessary to have that, to be able to recognize what failures that we have and how to work through them and become better. I'm not sure what else to add to that, but there's that.
Absolutely. So just to kind of like summarize what you just said to make sure that I understand it correctly, you're saying, there's this process in which we grow, and insofar as we are not entirely aligned with everything that is true and good and beautiful, sometimes we have some type of descent. And when we have that, that's the role of our conscious telling us, hey, you should maybe refocus or redirect your focus and change the direction of the way that you're doing things. And to the extent that this psychological phenomena could point towards, or we could understood as God doing that work, then we can actually agree with this statement. But how about this? What would happen then, for example, with the people that don't, that perhaps are atheists and also could perhaps, have a type of creative illness? Say, for example, the example of Freud. It's a clear good example. He's very anti-religion, and he would still have creative illness, and being able to come up on the other side, was still able to make breakthroughs in his career. How would we, still kind of like understand this, even from outside of a theistic sort of like framework? Because obviously from the theistic framework we could clearly see that we could understand maybe this process as being God molding us. But if it's somebody that completely wants to secularize it and don't wants to understand it like that, would that people also be going through the same process if they are rejecting God, or do they go through the same process and God still aids them in that process of transformation?
Yeah, so I would say, okay, yeah, yes. If we can try to, I'm going to frame this like more in a psychological sense. What is God? God is whatever sits at the very top of a hierarchy, and so in that sense, on a psychological level, whatever is sitting at that top of your hierarchy of like values or whatever it might be, your conscience is influenced by that. That is, your conscience, whatever you end up determining within yourself as good or bad, is going to come out of whatever is sitting at the top of the hierarchy that you believe in. And so you could easily conceptualize whatever that thing at the top is that each person's God, whether they're atheist or not. And perhaps they could not even be all that aware of whatever sits at the very top of their hierarchy. It's always going to be something, which I think is one of the important reasons why people should know what their gods are, because if there is something sitting at the top and they're not aware of it, perhaps that something could be something that actually ends up directing the conscience down into the valley without an escape back up. So that's how I would frame that in response.
I see. So to an extent, you're saying that there is a sense in which people's descent into some type of hell, as they are going into this dissolution, into chaos, can also come up on the other side by doing some type of small harrowing of that hell, but to the extent that they have put something lower at the top of the hierarchy of goods, the further descent is inevitable, because there is this type of a structure where there is a God that sits on top of all the other all of the other hierarchies of goods. And to the extent that we misplace whatever it is that we recognize as what is at the top, then inevitably we're going to fall. Is that what I'm understanding? Am I understanding correctly your point?
Yeah, I think that sounds about right.
I see. Interesting. And so then, in that sense, then how is it that we can, sometimes conceptualize, for example, or make this sort of like, what would you say? Why is it then, for example, that there's some people that clearly put lower goods at the top of the hierarchy of value, and they seem to be, have flourishing, even after they have committed to the things that are not good, like you can see, say, for example, them having material goods, for example, or maybe, for example, having different types of, ways in which doors are opening for them, even though they are not placing things properly in the hierarchy of values. Why does this type of phenomenon happen as well?
So, like, why are there people who are doing well despite the fact that whatever seems to be sitting on top of their hierarchy is something that is not oriented towards the good and the true and the beautiful? Is that kind of the question?
Yeah, kind of like that as well. Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Great job, Chris. Very well done. And so tell me, Josh, how would you rate Chris's performance this round?
Can I give like a description of why I'm rating it the way I am? Like explain
Yes,
the
absolutely.
rating?
Yes, absolutely.
So the description of like the creative illness in a good sense felt very, very thorough. That was a 5 out of 5 explanation of how the creative experience has the shamanic feeling of first going down and then going up, and how there's that the negative emotions and the things are this pull towards the good that are sort of dragging through the darkness. That was a perfectly good explanation. I felt like the contention part wasn't entirely a valid argument, because it seemed like to me the focus shifted from it being about the creative illness to being about the good. And so when it was said, like, can there be people who have this creative illness but they're moving towards the bad, Chris said, well, ultimately they're going down. But I see this as not precisely addressing the creative illness part, like, because yes, they are going down, yes, they're out of alignment with the good, but you could still say that they have a creative illness. Like, so Hitler did a lot of creative things and he was aligned downwards. And so the questions to me seem to be more about, can a person with creative illness not be pulled by God? And I would say there's examples in the Bible, Pharaoh, his heart was hardened. There's something about, and so he was in a sense creative. He, not particularly creative, but he was at least active. He formulated all these chariots to go attack the Israelites, and it was not orientated towards the good. So I don't know if I was losing track myself, but that's why I would give it a 4 instead of a 5, because it felt like it didn't address the biggest counterpoint.
Absolutely, absolutely, good sir. Good job. And with that, Chris, tell me, how would you rate yourself?
I'm actually surprised you didn't say 3, because that's what I'm actually going to say. Is I actually give myself a 3. I think, and pretty much exactly for the reasons you said, Josh. Because I was like, yeah, I did feel like maybe got a little on the. I wasn't as on topic.
I felt like it was the dragon's fault, to be honest, but it seemed like he was trying to steer the ship off topic.
Maybe so, but yeah.
dragon.
And so I was, there were good points, and I was like, okay, I was glad I was able to think of that and hit these certain ideas. But yeah, so 3 for me.
Absolutely, sir. No problem. Very, very good. And with that, we're heading back to Josh. Tell me, which topic would you like to choose? Tohuwabohu, creative illness, or idols?
Can I ask what Tohuwabohu is?
Tohuwabohu is this. It's the chaotic waters. Is this term in Hebrew for the chaotic waters at the beginning of Genesis in the Bible? It's basically this creative potential, the source of all the potential from where everything started before it had any form whatsoever. It's the primordial source of.
I'll do that one. That sounds very interesting.
Absolutely. Tohuwabohu it is. And with that, the statement is, the purpose of religion is to ameliorate the traumatic experience that comes with the dissolution into chaos and help you navigate through it so you can increase your chances of succeeding. Would you like to argue for or against this statement?
Let me think for one moment. I can see how to argue for this. I just want to think about how I could argue against this to see what the terrain would be like.
Absolutely, sir.
So, yeah, I mean, this is a big idea that the religion is to, the quote is, the religion is to prevent religious experience. Yeah, okay. I would argue for this.
Absolutely, sir. Sounds good. Let me just call in the dragon and we'll give it a go. 1 second. All right. Here we go. Josh, show me what you got. How are you going to defend this?
Well, I will give the reason probably where the original statement came from about religion being there to prevent religious experience. It's a very transcendental framework that is there to guide you. And if a person does not have this framework, phenomena that appear in reality to the person don't then have an ability to be categorized and located within the religious framework, and therefore the phenomena is appears as pure chaos as opposed to a location in the religious framework, and that's would be my argument to support that.
Okay, I see. So is what you're trying to say basically that whenever we are, if we were, as we move forward into the world and when we make mistakes and, consequences happen to us, whenever we don't have the religious framework, it's just an entire dissolution into chaos. Whereas if we have a religious framework, we have like a type of map that we can use to be able to navigate forward. Is that your argument, sort of?
Yeah, I'm not saying necessarily that's always the case. That's a large percentage of the time the case. That's historically the case. That, yeah.
I see. There's two ways in which I come to mind sometimes. Like, people a lot of the times would say perhaps things like, well, what would you say about all of the other instances in which religions have also been stumbling stone for not only individuals but also the entire civilization. Sometimes there's a sense in which, for example, like wars have been waged in the name of religion. And would you say in that case that all religions are categorically the same and all religions provide this type of framework? Or would you say that only some religions are the ones that provide this type of map, so you are able to navigate the world in such a way so that you are to come on the other side of this type of chaotic dissolution?
I would just say that a war and a misused religion for the sake of violence isn't necessarily the same thing as chaos. It can be order in itself. And so the heart of the proposition here isn't that religion guides people to the good necessarily, but that it's a framework to shield against chaos. And so if a country, because of religion, a religious idea, decides to go to war against something, the people's own minds may be strictly organized against chaos in a way that is too orderly. Their order doesn't allow enough chaos in, and so they have this order that's coming from the religion that is leading them to go out to battle, which for the other people, it's an encounter with sort of chaos, but not precisely chaos, more just violence, an attack, which isn't sort of the same thing as chaos. Chaos is sort of a plethora, combinatorially explosive set of options. When somebody's attacking you, that's not that many options. When you're deciding to attack somebody, that's not that many options. It's just one thing. It's very, very simple. It's not really chaos, is what I would say.
I see. So, that's a very interesting argument, this idea of, sometimes there can be instances in which religions can actually have can be on the other side, can have, instead of too much chaos, too much order, into a sense where it becomes overly tyrannized and like too rigid in order to, incorporate other sort of views or other types of, outside perspectives outside of like the rigidity of its own center. And that's a very interesting claim. And but I guess I would answer with the following. So would you say that the best religions in that case would be then the ones that account for how to incorporate things that are outside of the margin or at the verge of the margin? And to the extent that religions don't know how to do that, would those religions actually, perhaps have more of a chance of flipped or of a sense in which like there's a point at which it goes overboard in the rigidity of their system, and then it becomes again back into a chaotic place. Because I know you said that we could be argued that war is not chaotic, but to the extent that once the war starts, and then there can be a plan for how to approach the war, but once you're in the battlefield, that is like pure chaos. Like what's happening already there, it's like almost unconceivable, and then what's going to happen after that if, like, say, the structures, the centers of the structures of the places that are going to work to war, say for example their leaders or the majority of their people actually get eliminated, for example, there's a sense in which that whole society can disintegrate and then can be swallowed by the other nations. So in that sense, there is an aspect in which it does kind of like also dissolves into chaos past a certain point. So what would you say about this, like from the perspective of religions? Some religions having this ability of incorporating marginal perspectives.
So the first part of that, I would totally agree with, that a religion that has the ability to incorporate the chaos appropriately, as opposed to ossifying into an entirely totalitarian state, that is the hallmark of a very good religion. The second part of that, I would again make the same contention. You said if a person's in battle, there's pure chaos, there's people around them attacking them, and then furthermore, if they lose their leaders, if they get wiped out to some degree, it's chaos. I'm going to push back against that again and say that's not chaos at all. If you're in a battle, it's not psychedelic chaos. It's not transcendental chaos. Yes, there's people attacking you. Yes, there's things you have to do. It's very, very clear what you should be doing to some degree. It's stay alive, defeat the enemy. Very clear. It's not a combinatorially explosive to the same degree as literally just sitting there by yourself and having infinite options. And so then, even in the case where somebody loses their leaders, maybe they disintegrate to some degree, I see that as less chaos. They have less options. If you lose your leaders, you lose ability to have agency in the world. That's less chaos. You have less options. Less options is less chaos. I'm still saying that, like, the state of somebody doing nothing and not being attacked and just having infinite options. So a person sitting there and they can go talk to these people, they can do these creative things, they can do this. That's way more chaos than I gotta stay alive in a battle, or I just lost all my options because of being wiped out. To me, that's just less chaos.
I see. And so, what did you say, for example, then that there are other ways in which you can perhaps ameliorate this sort of traumatic experience that are a consequence of the dissolution into chaos through other ways that are not religion? For example, there's this investigation into psychedelics, for example, that say that people that take certain doses of psilocybin can actually reduce death anxiety. So how can we actually contend with that if there's people that are entirely outside of our religious framework, and then they take a dose of, say, psilocybin or mescaline, and then they have statistically a sense in which they have reduced their anxiety. Obviously, these are terminally ill patients. Just to point to the work of Peter Griffith on the investigation of psychedelics. Like, how can we contend with that as well?
See, this is a moment where I feel like the dragon is trying to get me off track, because I don't think that contends against the question at all, because the question, or the proposition here, isn't, is religion the only thing that provides order against chaos? Is religion, the purpose of religion, to ameliorate against the traumatic experiences coming from the dissolution of chaos and help you navigate? So when you bring up the example of psychedelic experience, I'm just going to say it's possible that that's also a fortitude against the dissolution into chaos, but that doesn't damage the proposition of the initial claim.
I see. So I guess you could say, in a sense, that even that type of experience with the psychedelics could be also be conceived as a type of religious experience. But then, I guess, like, it goes back to how you opened this conversation when you said that the famous quote from Jung that says that the purpose of religion is to prevent people from having religious experiences, but the religious experience themselves are actually a source of growth at the end of the day. But to the extent that we have religion, then it kind of like prevents people from having to go through that traumatic experience to try to figure it out on themselves to come out on the other side. And so with that, I think, Josh, I think that you did a great job, and I think that you have really crippled me this time. But I'm going to get you next time for sure. All right, good job, sir. Great job. That was amazing. And so with that, Chris, tell me, how would you rate Josh's performance on this sparring?
5. No notes. You did a great job, and being able to keep on track on focus on the claim itself. Good job.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Good job, sir. And so with that, Josh, tell me, how would you rate yourself?
I mean, I may have blind spots that I'm not aware of, but I don't see, like, in what I said that there was any fundamental flaw. So I can't mark off any points. So I would say 5 as well.
Absolutely, sir. Sounds perfect. And with that, we're heading back to Chris. Tell me, Chris, which topic would you like to debate?
We'll go for idols because I do want to see what that one is, and
Absolutely, sir.
I'm curious.
So the statement is, Peterson maintains that the spirit you call on is the one that answers. That statement aims at trying to show that the world unfolds in front of you in accordance to what your aim is. And if you are aiming at something that is detrimental, then you will inevitably fall. This fits nicely with the biblical insistence that one must not worship idols, or in other words, one must not seek that which is sacrilegious to the true structure of reality. Would you like to argue for or against this statement?
I'll go 4.
Absolutely, sir. No problem. Just give me 1 second. I'm gonna call in the dragon. All right, good sir. Tell me, how are you going to defend this?
So, the spirit that you call on is the spirit that answers. That is the knock, and it shall be opened unto you. Ask, and ye shall receive. Seek, and ye shall find. And there is, I would say, ample evidence that those ideas are very true. And even in a sense of, like, you get what you prepare for. For one example that I know about is people who have dash cams in their cars actually have higher rates of getting into accidents. Because in a way, having a dash cam is preparing for someone ramming into you and you needing evidence that it wasn't your fault. And so it is, in a way, a preparation for that kind of thing happening. And as a result, it is kind of you're asking for that sort of thing to happen almost. Maybe not, of course, intentionally, but it is something you prepare for. And so in that sense, and then there's also other concepts, and there's a mathematical problem of which is called the simple marriage problem. And in the solution to the simple marriage problem, I'm not going to go into it because it's somewhat complicated, but I mean, the gist of it is that you're trying to match pairs of single men and single women together in such a way that they wouldn't swap with one another. They wouldn't have any swaps to a different spouse. And so they're all in stable marriages. And the solution, or the algorithm that solves that problem, shows that whoever ends up, whichever side of the problem, either the men or the women, because it's, the men have to, either the men have to approach the women or the women have to approach the men. Whichever side is the one that is agentic, the ones being the ones who are asking, they end up getting their highest preferences possible, and the ones who don't ask get their least preferences. And so if you do ask for something that you actually don't want, chances are you are actually going to end up getting it. And that, those are the idols. It's like you ask for an idol that is not going to serve you in accordance to reality. Your reality is going to end up getting molded by something that's not good. And even there's a story in the book of Judges where it's a story of Gideon, and Gideon ends up throwing down the idols, the idol of Baal that like his father had put up, and it angered a lot of people. But what's interesting is Gideon's father's response to everyone being angry and saying we got to kill Gideon is, well, let Baal speak for himself. And then of course that shuts everybody up because Baal's a false idol. And so when you tear it down, that the way the story progresses. Like after he's torn down the idol, things are able to progress where Israel is able to come out of a period of oppression. And so in starting out the story with like having this idol being torn down, it shows narratively that is a start to asking for, and starting to ask for the right things. You stop asking for the wrong things, and those when you tear down those wrong idols, those wrong things that you're asking for, they can't stand up for themselves. They don't have any ground that they stand on, and so you switch over into asking for something good, for the good, the true, the beautiful. That will end up revealing itself to you. So there you go.
I see. So there's a sense in which, what you're saying, I think it's very powerful, and I think it goes very much along the lines of what this statement is saying. But let me ask you, is there a sense then in which you are able to aim at certain goods without having a framework of having that highest good actually guiding that way of choosing? For example, say, I don't know, I regard my family as good, and I appreciate my family, for example, and I want the best for my family, and I aim at providing for them, but without explicitly thinking about God himself sitting at the top of the hierarchy of value. Just think about, for example, all of the good people of the world that don't commit to the religious narrative. Would you say that all of these people are by definition aiming at something that is lower, or would you say that they, to an extent, to also follow the same type of good?
I think that sort of gets a little off track from the statement itself, and so it's like because what you're aiming at is what you're asking for, and so in this statement, it is just in that you ask for something, that is the thing that is going to show up for you. And so even if it is bad, if what you ask for is bad, that is what is going to show up. And so it's I'm trying to think of some other examples of when you ask for Pharaoh is another example, with the story of Moses. In a sense, he ends up asking because of his insistence to not let the Hebrews go. He's asking, more and more for God's wrath to end up falling on him. Maybe not exactly quite so intentionally, but at the very least, he's intentionally saying no to God's will and what God would want him to do. And so it's still the sense of if you're trying to provide for your family, then whatever you ask for insofar as what do I need to do to provide for my family? What are the ways I can provide for my family? Hey, can I get this job so that I can provide for my family? You are going out into the world and seeking to do those things, and those things do come. It isn't so. It's because it is you're in the asking. You are practicing your will. You're bringing your will into the world, and with that, you are able to take hold of the things you're seeking after, and it does come to you. And so I would just keep on track with that statement is, yeah, the spirit you call on is the one that answers.
I see. So, would you say then that what you're trying to get at is that ultimately what we ask for and what we seek actually is what most profoundly shows exactly what is it that we believe on or where we have our faith on?
Yes, yes, because that can, yeah, very strongly relates to faith and what you believe in. Because when you when you ask for something, when you call on something, there is you implicitly are practicing faith in that you will receive it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing so. You believe that you will be able to receive. Hence, that is the reason you are asking.
I see. And so, do we always get, if we're aiming at the good, is it inevitable for us to get good a good response from the world, like, say, because I know that, I don't know if perhaps this is going a little bit off track here, but there is a sense in which there are instances as well in which people have not asked for something bad to happen to them, and yet the calamity falls on them. Like, things that come to mind is, for example, Job. He was a good man and he didn't do anything bad to deserve what happened to him, but inevitably bad things came his way, and all of his friends and even his wife, they were all saying, some of them were even accusing him and saying, like, tell the truth, you actually did something bad, otherwise God wouldn't be doing this to you. And he was like, I haven't done anything bad. Like, I just I don't know what's happening right now. I've continued to be rageous. I continue to be aiming at the good. I continue to be doing good, and this just happened to me. So to the extent that those things happen as well sometimes, how can we, I guess, make peace with that as well within this framework?
Well, I think, funnily, the answer actually lies in that same story, because he does remain oriented to the good, to God, and does not kind of relinquish himself to his circumstances. In a way, he's still calling on the Spirit of God, and the story ends. He comes out having more than he had to begin with. And so I would say that story in itself is the example for which you can understand, even when these things come against you, as long as you actually continue to ask for, insofar as you might be wanting to be aligned with the good and keeping on calling on that, you do end up reaping good ultimately in the end.
I see. Wow, that's very interesting, Chris. And I think that it was very, very good, position to take, and very good, very well defended. I think you really crippled me this time, but I'm gonna get you next time. Ah, all right, great job, guys. Very good, Chris. So tell me, Josh, how would you rate this statement? This sparring.
Solid 5.
Absolutely.
Extremely aware of the territory, tracking where the statement itself, and just a very high awareness of solid. All the answers where I felt deadly sharp, like a sharp sword.
Absolutely, sir. Great job. And with that, Chris, tell me, how would you rate yourself on this sparring?
I'll also say 5, because I'm pretty happy with that, and so I can't think of any like points where I was like, oh man, I didn't argue that very well. So I'm happy. I hit everything I wanted to.
Absolutely, sir. Good job. And with that, we're heading over back to Josh. Which topic would you like to pick?
I will take a whack at creative illness.
Creative illness it is, absolutely. And so the statement, um, just as it was before, creative illness theory basically describes the process by which God molds a person into the best version they can be, or in other words, theosis, through the use of conscience. And its process is described even further by St. John of the Cross in his poem The Dark Night of the Soul. Would you like to argue for or against this statement?
Against.
Absolutely, sir. No problem. Let me just call in the dragon. 1 second. All right, Josh. Tell me, how are you going to go against this statement?
So basically, I agreed with everything Chris said. So the creative illness can very much be somebody like having a shamanic transformation is getting pulled towards the good, and the appearance that is manifested socially is that they are ill in some way, but really they're tracking something deeper and good. In the formulation of this question, though, it seems to imply that creative illness as such is the pull towards the good. And my contention would be that it can be, but there are also cases where a person is creatively ill in that kind of way where they're disjointed in that classic sense from society, but they are not pointing towards the good, and the illness is coming about as a result of misaligned aim towards an idol.
I see. So you're you kind of want to refute this by saying that basically there's two different, the same type of phenomena sometimes can actually lead towards the good, and sometimes it actually can continue to be a source of the fall, but it can still be creative at the end of it, but still constitute a continuous fall. Is that right?
It's not truly creative when you really zoom out about it and look at it, but this isn't a question of is true creativity this. It's a question about the idea of creative illness. And like there's a reason why when people are creatively ill, they're doing, there was this guy who is now unfortunately passed away, but he was schizophrenic, and he built an entire operating system because he was afraid that the other operating systems were maybe hacked or something. And so he built a whole computer programming language called Holy C. And he did all these creative things. And, it was a true illness, possibly. Maybe in the end we'll see it wasn't, but there's a reason why when somebody is sort of crazy and doing creative things, people don't just go, oh, this guy is our new shaman, he's our new leader. It's because I would say mostly when people do that, it actually doesn't result in anything good.
I see. Would you say though that God to an extent is able to see all the good that is in people, even though it might be even a tiny little speck, even if somebody has like a lot of darkness in them, but like it's only a tiny little bit of light. Would you say that God is trying to actually call that little bit of light towards him, and actually perhaps try to at least extend an invitation to type of ascent, even to some of the people that perhaps it's they're still even farther away from what we could constitute as the good, like very far away of what we could constitute as the good, but to an extent the same psychological phenomena and the way that our cognition is sort of like, if we were to think of this from a teleological argument, or an argument that we are designed sort of, and we have a type of purpose. If we were to think of our existence as having a purpose and being designed, wouldn't you say that sort of psychological mechanism, it's perhaps, even if people reject it, is at the very least perhaps set up in such a way that it was intended to be used, in that way, so that it can at the very least become an invitation to, try to align oneself to the good at whatever level it is that one encounters oneself. It can be whether it is like very close to God, or very very at the very bottom of that ladder. Would you say that that could be a potential case?
C.S. Lewis, I think, he makes an argument in Mere Christianity where he talks about the nature. He tries to answer the question of why there is evil in the world, and he says that it's an unavoidable necessity that if you're in a material world, which means that the material is affected by your actions. There's some kind of stable persistence of matter that consists through time. That in that world, if you have free will, it then necessarily implies that there's some kind of ability to make free decisions. It necessarily implies that there must be the ability to commit true acts of evil, not acts which are less good or still on the spectrum and have a little bit of good, but truly entirely in themselves out of alignment with God's will. That's the metaphysics that C.S. Lewis presents. And so when we analyze this from the conceptual level of creative illness, and is it necessarily moving towards the good? In any case where you have a model that's supposed to map onto reality, math and physics, and then what actually works, the model oftentimes has noise in the application that makes it not exactly work. If you throw a ball, you'd expect, according to physics, that the pull of stuff down here and the wind resistance would make it go exactly like this, but in practice we see a little bit of difference. I, however, would argue that just because there's some amount of noise doesn't then undercut the basic framework of the argument. And so even if in practicality there's some good in the bad, overall, does creative illness always necessarily imply a pull towards God? I would say in some cases, no. And therefore, what's really happening in practice, not important. It's about the idea itself.
I see.
Is it possible to have? Is it like theoretically possible to have creative illness without a pull towards God? Yes. Hitler was tremendously creative, invented many things.
In that sense, for example, would you say then? How would you say then that consciousness, or not consciousness, but rather conscience, your conscience, does that relate to God? Like, wouldn't you say that the creative illness that actually it's directed towards the bad, is one that actually lacks conscious or shame, so to speak? Like, doesn't have a type of it doesn't care for any type of it doesn't have a conscience bothering him. You know what I mean? Wouldn't you say that that is the cases in which the creative illness actually is directed towards the bad? And to the extent that conscience plays a role, then perhaps is, at least aiming at showing the person the negative emotion needed to course correct, and perhaps start aiming towards the good. Because think about it in the scenario where somebody's having a creative illness, and clearly it's a place where they are suffering, and they're like, it's painful because it's an illness, clearly. And then the conscience is kind of telling them like, well, to the degree that you're feeling like this is perhaps because you're not doing the right set of actions, or you're not engaging with this thing that you have in front of you in the appropriate way. And then to the extent that they don't listen to that conscience, they're just going to continue to live in that illness. And then as soon as they are able to find the proper path, then the positive emotion will kick in, because their conscience would not have to bug them with that problem anymore. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, just to clarify, I realized at the end of what I said Hitler, did many creative things. I'm talking about the creative things that were really a zero benefit, like gas chambers. It's like there was a problem there that didn't need to be solved. The problem was entirely evil. But I'm agreeing with what you're saying, that and it's I think kind of in alignment with what I'm saying, which is that there are acts of creativity that do not have that element of conscience in them. They're pure psychopathic moves toward darkness, or it's at least theoretically possible.
Yeah, it's very interesting too because uh, I think to a degree that's kind of like you could as usual, and it's funny that I bring this up, but because it comes up a lot like in many discussions, but as usually you can also link it back to the story of the fall, where it's sort of in a sense like it relates to this type of to obedience ultimately, right? Like to the extent that you are obedient to your conscience and then you don't continue a harmful behavior, then you're able to overcome that. But to the extent that you don't listen to your conscience and you try to do whatever it is that you want to seek while ignoring the conscience, then it's just going to continue to constitute a fall. And but yeah, I think that this was very good, Josh. You really it hurt me this time. You injured me this time, but I'm gonna get you next time for sure. Ugh. All right, good job, sir. Very very well done against that dragon. And so tell me, Chris, how would you rate Josh's performances this pairing?
I think I can give him a 5 again. I think he did very well. No notes.
Absolutely, sir. 5 it is. And with that, Josh, tell me, how would you rate yourself?
I I purposely avoided this 3-word phrase, creative illness theory, and I kind of addressed creative illness as people think about it. So, because I don't really know what creative illness theory is, so I feel like there's this gap in my knowledge. Like, is creative illness theory the specific thing that denotes something, and therefore my arguments don't line up? Additionally, at the end, this reference to the Dark Night of the Soul book, I don't know it, and so I don't know entirely if my answers are in alignment. Could you enlighten me at all about what creative illness theory actually is? Is it exactly what I was saying, or is it something different?
No, I think you were on the right track. I think that perhaps like like from a technical perspective, he's not like Ellenberger. He's not arguing or trying to connect it with God at all. He's just talking like purely as a psychological phenomena where like people sort of like get this different manifestations of like illness as they're sort of like hitting like some type of like wall in like whatever it is that they're thinking, and like and they have like it can manifest in different ways. Like you get very ill, you get like you get this sort of like a type of psychosis, you can get like different types of ways, but then usually right after people are able to come on the other side of that, it actually turns into like a breakthrough in whatever it is that they're thinking.
Yeah, I'm going to give myself a 4 because if it's more similar to Mircea Eliada's idea of the shamanic transformation, where I would say in that transformation always is this bit of conscience or a pull towards good. If it's more like that than the general notion of creative illness, then I'm going to give myself a 4 because I wasn't really taking into consideration that the actual specific definition of the creative illness theory maybe doesn't account for what I was describing. But so I'll give myself a 4.
Absolutely, sir. I think you did very good, and I think that you sort of like, obviously, with the statement as it was, like I think you did a great job, and I think that that's also what the statement was trying to convey. Because if we really get technical, like the creative illness theory can mean to a psychologist that perhaps is not trying to think of or to merge these two type of like the theological framework with the psychological framework, might completely reject this idea, because it might just like study the phenomena of creative illness theory as as what it is. So like from what the statement is kind of like trying to convey, I think you did a great job like trying to arguing this back and forward. So it was very very good. And with that, guys, that brings us to the end of the game. This was a very good game, I have to say, and massive points for Josh. So that puts Josh right at first place actually. Right after this, with 60 points. He got 31 points on this performance. Actually, the highest score we have ever gotten so far. And Chris, you got 23 points, which will put you in 4th place.
I get to keep my position.
Yeah, but you obviously will have like many more chances to come back and continue to fight for that crown. And so, with that, guys, I thank you so much again. Josh, your name will appear over here towards the end of the episode, and at least for now, you'll be the king of PA until next time. And so, I thank you so much, guys, for being here with me and going through all of these ideas and being so patient with me. And thank you so much in general. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.